Caro-Kann Defense is preached by some internet influencers. I won't mention them by name, but if you want to be Gotham Chess subscribers, here's how you can do it. I recommend that you use the two knights game, where you bring both of your knights into play quickly. Now, there is a little but important difference compared to the main line. In the main line, you play pawn to d4, and in the line that I recommend, you go knight to f3. And although they share a lot of things in common, in reality, having this extra piece into play provides lots of interesting, tricky, aggressive opportunities that we're gonna talk about today. And in fact, it's a really well-rounded system. You'll be covered no matter what black does, and in all of these lines, you'll have a nice attacking position. Now, the most played move by far is pawn takes e4. People who see this system for the first time will often push the pawn forward, hoping to drive your knight away, which is actually an inferior option. Pros often bring their bishop out to g4 right here, and we're gonna talk about that as well. Anyway, let's begin with the most common move, pawn takes e4. You recapture, and now, in most cases, they go knight f6, known as the Caro-Kann Variation. They expect you to take, they're going to recapture, and that leads to quite a dry position, which black is aiming for. Instead, I recommend that you play a much trickier move, queen e2, which provides defense to this knight, and also creates certain tactical opportunities. For example, if black realizes that you are in fact going to take on f6 on the next move, and after that, black can't recapture with the e-pawn as they intended because of this pin. So they'll have to recapture with the g-pawn, which a little bit creates a massive pawn structure, and many of your pawns will not be comfortable playing that. Now, if let's say your opponent wants to guard this knight and play knight to d7, which is a standard move for the Caro-Kann generally speaking, they fall for a relatively well-known trap, knight d6, a pretty sneaky and beautiful checkmate because the pawn is pinned. Now, of course, in most cases, they're not going to fall for this trap, but anyway, we have a lot of interesting attacking opportunities. In most cases, they're going to take on e4, now you recapture with the queen, and now they have a little bit of a problem of how to bring their pieces into play actively. For example, they can't develop this bishop normally because you took away all these squares. Now, they'll usually play knight d7, aiming for knight f6, winning a tempo, attacking your queen. To this, you bring the bishop out, and after knight f6, I recommend that you just drop the queen back, which sets a very subtle trap. Now, it looks like you just play normal development move, but in reality, if they play the most common move, bishop g4, which aims to pin the knight, and after that they want to play e6 and finish their typical Caro-Kann pawn structure, to this, you play bishop takes f7. That's a little bit nice tactics that fundamentally wins the game. It's a temporary bishop sacrifice, but now you follow up with this double attack, and on the next move you regain your sacrificed piece with interest. Now, in this situation, your up pawn, their king is open, and if they're careless, they can even be checkmated right on the next move, but either way, you already achieved a winning position. Apart from developing their knight, they may also play bishop f5 by analogy with the main line of the Caro-Kann, where it is actually considered a very good move. Strangely enough, against the two knights game, it usually backfires pretty badly. Now you go knight g3, attacking the bishop. As it drops back, you then continue with pawn h4, aiming to push the pawn forward and to capture the bishop. Therefore, they usually move the wrong pawn, providing the escape square. But now you start this quick attack with knight to e5, aiming to grab the bishop. They cannot really allow this to happen because after that they'll have to open up their king and ruin their pawn structure. That's why they usually bring their bishop back. But now you follow up with a strange looking move, queen h5. You create sort of a scholar's checkmating threat, however it's not very easy for black to defend against it, because what can they really do? I mean, in most cases they play this awkward move pawn g6. If instead they try queen d5, it's actually a losing error, because then you play bishop c4 and you just add even more firepower to your attack. Now they're completely defenseless, they're gonna be checkmated or lose a lot of material. So let's take it back. In most cases they play g6. Although they guarded the f7 square, but now their bishop on h7 is completely out of game. You have another beautiful follow-up. All of a sudden you don't move your queen out of this attack, but instead you play bishop c4. Quite an interesting move. You let them grab your queen, because if they do so, they're going to be checkmated after bishop takes f7. And even if they're smart enough to notice this and to cover, you then bring your knight all the way back to e2, your queen I mean. And now, your queen is standing here really well, but also, thanks to this in-between move bishop c4, your bishop is also placed to an active square. Now, there is one more advantage to this system. Virtually any normal-looking move of black is losing the game on the spot. If they play any casual developing move, if they bring their minor pieces out, anyhow, like all of that fails to the same tactics, knight takes f7. Notice that we've got a lot of pieces aiming towards this direction, and we're just going to make use of this. Now knight takes f7 blows up their defense. We also hit the queen and rook, therefore they need to take it, but now queen takes e6, check. Thanks to our bishop, we can execute this quick and nice checkmate. In general, what I like about this system of play is that although you don't aim for a specific opening trap, there are just so many traps along the way that your opponent is highly likely to get in at least one of them. But even if he doesn't, you still end up with a good position. All right, now we covered knight f6, we covered bishop f5. How about them trying knight to d7? Another standard Caro-Kann defense move where they prepare to develop this knight on f6 with the intent to recapture. So if you're going to take with your knight, they're going to recapture with this knight from d7. So that's their way of calculating lines. But we have something special prepared here just as well. As always, we bring the bishop to c4. After they play knight f6, we don't take because that only makes their life easier. Instead, we play knight to g5, aiming to checkmate them on the next move. Therefore, they have to cover, but then you play queen e2. And actually, we have seen this pattern in the previous variation just as well. We have a number of pieces aiming towards this square e6 or f7, and if they're careless, if they play any defensive move like bishop e7 or even worse h6, no matter what really, you're gonna sack your knight right here, and that's exactly the same attacking pattern that we've seen before. King takes, queen takes e6. Now if the king comes back, there's just queen to f7 checkmate on the next move thanks to our bishop supporting the queen. So the king has to go forward, but of course it's pretty easy for you to finish the game right after that. Queen f7, and it can be something like this, finishing the game with a fancy pawn move, pawn d3 mate. You may be thinking, Igor, it can't be all that bad, there must be a way for black to just play a normal chess game. And indeed, they just have to be very careful. As I said, they can't bring their bishop out or play pawn h6. They have to really defend this square. And the way to do is to play knight to b6, which opens up this bishop that currently guards the pawn on e6, plus they put some pressure to your bishop, even though the bishop is already defended, so it's not a big problem. Now, how do you develop your attack right here? Well, we use the fact that the knight from d7 no longer guards this square, and we can jump there right away, and there is no way for them currently to guard this pawn on f7. Therefore, they have to be really resourceful, because if they just allow you to take this pawn, forking their queen and rook, they're going to collapse and crumble away very soon. So they have to find the only way that just loses a pawn with no other dreadful consequences. So if they're smart enough to find that, the line is knight takes c4, and after recapture, the key move for black is queen to d5. And they manage to trade off queens, because their queen is attacking our knight, so we have to do that. So if they find this maneuver, they stay in the game, they don't lose immediately. But nevertheless, even in this case, at least we grab a pawn and we attack the rook, so still we end up with an advantageous endgame. So after rook g8, perhaps the easiest is just to move this knight away, just to be sure it's not trapped there, and you end up with this advantageous endgame with an extra pawn because we grab this pawn on f7. Plus, he can't castle kingside because the rook has moved. Now, of course, for many strong players, this would be a dream come true position, having an extra pawn, and Carlsen would consider this technically winning for white. Of course, I understand that for many players, it still remains to be pretty tricky on how to play such positions when there is no straightforward attack available. And that's not the subject of today's video, so if you're curious how to play these type of positions, I recommend that you check out my free masterclass where I share with you fundamental strategic ideas that help you to play this position as well as any other position when there is no straightforward attack of opponent's king. By now we covered black taking this pawn on e4, and after that, strangely enough, you have these three minor pieces that we can often bring to the game quite quickly, developing all kinds of tricky attacking opportunities if black plays one careless move. Now let's move it back and let's move on to the next option of black, which is pawn to d4. At first looks like a very tempting opportunity to push the pawn forward, grab more space, attack this knight, hoping to push it back. Looks like a super good move for black to play. In reality, it's the opposite. It's probably one of the worst attempts of black to respond to the two knights game, because after knight to e2, this pawn on d4 rather becomes a liability, not an asset. We are already attacking it twice, and black needs to defend it somehow, and it's not easy. Fundamentally, they just stretch their position too much with the rest of their pieces being undeveloped, and they just can't provide enough support to this pawn. Like, one of the common blunders would be to play pawn e5. Yeah, that sure enough does defend this pawn on d4, but that just blunders the other one on e5, therefore that's not helpful. They have to play the second move of this pawn on the c-file, which loses the tempo, but they have to do it just to guard this pawn on d4, but then you just keep attacking it. Usually they defend it, and after that you exchange, and then you follow up with queen a4. That's the useful move to remember. You pin the knight, and you also add one more attack to this pawn on d4, and now you're attacking it 3 times with your both knights and queen. And After this, black already can no longer hold on to this pawn, they're going to simply lose it. Again, it's just like we said before, the pawn is too far away from the rest of their army, that's why it's not helpful for black to have it there. In most cases, they follow up with yet another error. They play pawn e5 to guard this pawn on d4. However, they miss the fact that your queen not only attacks this pawn, but also pins the knight. Therefore, you can actually capture this pawn for nothing. Moreover, you're now attacking this knight on c6. And after they defend it, usually you just trade the knight right here, then grab the other pawn on d4. Now, if they want to get at least one of their pawns back, they'll have to keep trading everything. And now you can also throw the bishop out, attack the king, and at the end of the day, you're up a pawn, plus their king is exposed, you're already attacking it, you're going to castle, play rook e1, and fundamentally you're having a winning game. Now let's talk about the most stubborn move played by pros, bishop g4, which aims to pin your knight, and after that they wish to complete their central pawn chain by playing pawn e6. In most cases, the white goes pawn h3, which leads to very complicated theoretical positions. I recommend that you instead play bishop e2, which is sort of a standard reaction to them trying to pin your knight, but in this case we have something completely different in mind actually. It's not a defensive move. Now, one of the questions you may have is, what if they play pawn d4, attacking your knight? Well, actually, let this be a puzzle of the day. There's white to play, and if you can't find a good move for white, please write it down in comments below. Now, in most cases, they play e6 because that was their plan, to bring the bishop out and after that to have this pyramid of pawns. Now you're playing pawn d4, they develop, attacking your pawn, you push the pawn to e5, knight to d7, and they're very close to reaching their kind of dream come true French sort of position, where they have this pawn chain, but their bishop is active on g4, not passive on c8. However, we have here something to upset them. It's the move knight to g5. So instead of trading off potentially his bishop for your knight, you want to keep this knight alive, because after this, they need to trade bishops. And actually, I've played this kind of positions as black, because for some time I've been playing the Caro-Kann Defense, and I know that it's very difficult to deal with this knight. Strangely enough, it's not easy to push it away, because there is always some queen h5 thing, or knight takes e6 tactics, and somehow it has a number of attacking opportunities here. For instance, if they go bishop e7, trying to just naturally push this knight away, you don't move back, you play queen h5, aiming for this checkmate. Now, it may feel like the easiest is just to trade knights off, but now after bishop g5, you keep attacking. After that, you just castle, kingside, or possibly even queenside, and having these two active pieces against their king is somewhat unpleasant, and actually, you have a great position here, really. If they don't take the knight, then they have to do something to stop your queen from taking there. If they go g6, thinking to push it away, you go forward, queen h6. Now, you also cut off this square, making it impossible for them to castle. And maybe in some lines, you're even willing to grab this pawn. So if they try bishop f8, attacking your queen, you bring the queen back to h3. Now they usually play bishop g7, trying to kind of fill these holes on the king side. Then you can just castle. And again, they're in trouble. They still cannot castle. This time, if they do so, it's going to fail to this checkmate. There's always something that bothers black. If instead they go h6, which I believe is the most played move, then it fails once again to these tactics, knight takes e6. It's not even a sacrifice, because you get 3 pawns for your knight, so you attack the king. After this, you grab the 3rd pawn, still attacking the king. And let's say they do something, you do not want to trade off queens, because you want to attack his king, so just slide back. And now you have 3 pawns for a knight, which is considered to be material balance, but in reality their position is completely destroyed. Their king is exposed, you threaten to play e5 with a double attack. Even if they manage to prevent this somehow, you're just going to push the other pawn forward, f4, f5, and then, keep pushing one of them forward, and it's going to completely press black and win the game quickly. If they ever going to castle, it will always fail to this bishop takes h6 tactics, let alone pawn h6. You can see that there's just way too much for black to handle here. Hopefully now you know how to deal with the Caro-Kann defense. If you want to know my favorite opening line against the Sicilian defense, it was even picked up by Carlson. Check out this video right here where I cover it. And if you want to level up your chess overall beyond opening knowledge and moves, then check out this free masterclass that levels up your positional understanding. Either way, have a great day.